The first time I realized silence can be louder than screaming was the moment she said it. Not yelled, not cried, not even hesitated, just calm. "This baby isn't yours," she said, like she was commenting on the weather. And the room went so quiet, it felt like the walls were leaning in to listen. I remember my own breath got stuck halfway, like my body forgot how to be human. My eyes flicked around the table, looking for someone, anyone, to laugh, to say it was a joke, to rescue me from the sudden collapse of reality. But no one moved. Not my mother. Not my brother. Not even the nurse, who had just stepped in with a folder of discharge papers. Only her, Amina, sitting straight-backed in that beige hospital chair, hands folded neatly in her lap, face smooth as glass. She didn't look angry. She didn't look sad. She looked finished. And I swear to you, that calmness scared me more than if she had thrown a chair across the room. "What did you just say?" I asked, but my voice came out thin like it didn't belong to me. Amina lifted her eyes slowly, meeting mine with a softness that felt like cruelty. "I said the truth," she replied. "Before you sign anything, before your family throws a party, before you name him after your father." My father's name sat on my tongue, ready. I'd been holding it like a promise. We'd argued about names for months, her pretending to consider mine, me pretending to respect hers, all of it playing like a normal marriage. But suddenly, everything felt staged, like a set built to trick me. The bassinet beside the bed made a tiny squeak as the baby shifted. My baby. My son. The boy I'd watched enter this world only hours ago, his face red and furious like he was protesting life itself. The boy I'd held, trembling. When the nurse placed him in my arms, I stared at him now like he was a stranger. "No," I said quickly. Too quickly. The word came out sharp. "Stop. Don't do this. This is sick." Amina didn't flinch. "Don't touch him," she said quietly. I froze. My hand had been halfway toward the bassinet. "Don't touch him," she repeated, and her calm voice sliced through me like ice. "Not until you hear everything." My mother finally found her voice. "Amina, Beta, what are you saying? You just gave birth. You're exhausted. You're confused." Amina smiled, barely. "I'm not confused, Auntie." I've never been clearer. My brother Faraz stood by the window, arms folded. He wouldn't look at me. That alone made my stomach drop. Faraz was the kind of man who looked you in the eye even while punching you. For him to avoid my gaze, it felt like a warning. I turned back to Amina. "You're trying to punish me," I said. "This is about the fight last week, isn't it?" "Because I didn't come to your mother's, it's not about that," she interrupted. Still calm. Still controlled. "It's bigger." The nurse shifted uncomfortably at the door. She was pretending to check her papers, but her eyes kept darting to us like she was watching a drama she didn't ask for. Amina tilted her chin toward the nurse. "Can you give us a minute?" The nurse hesitated. "Ma'am, I just need, please," Amina said, and somehow that single word carried authority. The nurse glanced at my mother like she was asking permission, then quietly backed out, pulling the door shut behind her. Now it was just us and the baby, and that suffocating quiet. Amina leaned forward slightly. "I didn't want your family here," she said to me. "But you insisted. You wanted witnesses. You wanted everyone to see you become a father." My throat tightened. "I am a father." Her eyes flicked to the baby again. "You will be," she said softly, "but not to him." The way she said it, like she was saving the real blow for later, made my chest burn. My mother's voice cracked. "What is happening?" "Amina, speak properly. Don't talk in riddles." Amina's fingers reached into her handbag. That handbag was small, brown leather, worn at the corners. I'd bought it for her on our first anniversary because she'd said she wanted something simple and classy. I remembered how she'd kissed my cheek and called me sweet. Now watching her reach into it felt like watching a magician pull out a knife. She drew out a white envelope, not sealed. not folded. Already prepared. She placed it gently on the table, beside the vase of dying carnations that someone from my office had sent earlier. The flowers looked pathetic now, like even they understood they didn't belong in this moment. "What is that?" I asked. Amina slid the envelope toward me with one finger. "Open it." My hands felt numb as I picked it up. The paper was thick, expensive. Inside was a single sheet, printed, not handwritten. My eyes skimmed the top line, paternity test report. My heart stopped. I looked up at her, expecting to see panic, regret, something human. But she only sat there, calm as a closed door. "How?" My voice broke. "How do you have this?" Amina's gaze didn't waver. "I planned," she said. "I had to." I looked down again, reading the bold numbers, the clinical language. Probability of paternity, 0%. For a second, my brain refused to understand what it was looking at. Like it was a different language. 0. Not low. Not uncertain. 0. The room tilted. My mother made a sound, half gasp, half prayer. Faraz finally turned, staring at the floor like he was ashamed of the tiles. My mouth opened, but no words came out. I felt like someone had poured cold water through my veins. "This is fake," I whispered. Amina shook her head slowly. "It's not." I stood up so fast the chair scraped loudly against the floor, the sound exploding in the silence. "This is insane. You can't just— This is my baby." I saw him born. Amina didn't even blink. "Men see a lot of things," she said, soft and merciless. "They see what they want to see." I grabbed the paper tighter. "Who is the father?" I snapped. "Tell me right now." "Who?" Amina's eyes finally shifted, just slightly, toward the baby. And for the first time the calmness cracked. Not into tears, into something darker, something like grief mixed with disgust. She swallowed, then looked back at me. "You don't want that answer," she said. My chest heaved. "I do." Amina's voice dropped to a whisper, but it landed like thunder. "It's someone in this room," and I swear, in that moment the air itself changed, like every corner of the hospital room suddenly had teeth. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Faraz took one slow step back as if the floor might open under him. And I stood there, paper shaking in my fist, watching the people I trusted most become strangers. Amina leaned back, eyes shining now, not with tears but with something harder. "You brought witnesses," she repeated softly. "So fine. Let them witness this." Then she turned her head slightly, looking past me, and said a name that made my stomach collapse. And that was the moment I understood this wasn't just a betrayal. This was a deliberate execution of my entire life. The name left her lips like a match dropped on gasoline. Faraz. For half a second my brain refused to accept it, like the sound had bounced off my skull and never made it inside. Then reality punched through. I turned so fast my neck hurt, eyes locking onto my brother. Faraz didn't speak. Didn't even deny it. He just stood there with that same stiff posture, but his face looked like someone had finally ripped off a mask he'd been wearing for years. Not shock. Not confusion. Guilt. Thick, heavy, undeniable guilt. My mother made a strangled noise. "Astaghfirullah, Faraz?" Her voice trembled like she was scared the word itself would summon punishment. I stared at him, waiting for him to laugh, to scoff, to say, "Are you serious?" Anything that would pull us back from this cliff. But Feroz's eyes flicked to Amina for the briefest moment. A glance. A silent exchange. And in that glance, I saw everything. Not proof, not logic. Something worse. Familiarity. My whole body went cold, then hot, then cold again. "No," I said, but it came out like a plea. "No, you're lying." Amina's calm voice returned, sharp and steady. "I'm not lying. You're just late." My hands clenched into fists so tight my nails dug into my skin. "Faraz," I said, forcing my voice into something that sounded like control. "Tell her she's lying." Faraz finally looked at me. And he didn't say no. He exhaled slowly, like he was tired. "I didn't want it like this," he muttered. That sentence cracked something inside me, because people only say that when it's true. My mother stepped forward, palms shaking. "Faraz, what are you saying? What is this nonsense?" "You're his brother." Faraz's jaw tightened. He looked away again, like meeting her eyes would burn him. "Ami, please," Amina cut in. "Don't say please now. You didn't say please when you were in my house." My stomach lurched. I felt like I was watching a nightmare while awake, my brother and my wife speaking like two people who had shared things. Secrets, bodies, and I was the only one who hadn't gotten the script. "Shut up," I hissed at Amina. "Stop talking." But she didn't stop. She reached into her bag again, slow and deliberate, like she was pulling out weapons one by one. This time, she brought out something small. A baby sock, tiny, blue, soft. The kind people post online with captions like "New chapter begins." She held it between her fingers and looked at me like she was showing me a dead flower. "I kept this," she said, "from the first time I suspected." My voice shook. "Suspected what?" "That you were never going to see me," she replied. "Not really. You saw a wife, a home, a perfect picture." Her eyes flickered toward my mother, a daughter-in-law who didn't argue too much. Then she looked at Faraz. "And a body your brother thought he could borrow whenever he pleased." Faraz flinched. "Amina, no," she snapped, suddenly louder. Not screaming, but the sharpness of her voice made my skin prickle. "Don't say my name like you respect it. You didn't respect me." My mother looked like she might faint. "Amina, stop. This is shameful, shameful." Amina's laugh was hollow. "What's shameful is how easily all of you look away. Shameful is how you keep teaching women to swallow everything and smile." I stepped toward Faraz, my body moving before my mind could catch up. "How long?" I demanded. Faraz's throat bobbed. He didn't answer. Amina answered for him. "Since the night you left for Karachi for that work emergency." My head snapped to her. "That was 2 years ago." Amina nodded slowly. "Yes, 2 years of lies that you called routine. 2 years of you leaving me alone in this house like I was furniture." My mother's voice trembled. But you were happy. You never complained." Amina's eyes went flat. "Because in this family, when women complain, you call them difficult." Silence again. Except this time it wasn't shocked silence. It was exposed silence. My gaze dropped to the bassinet. The baby made a tiny noise, a soft, breathy sigh, completely unaware that his existence had just detonated a family. My knees felt weak. I pointed at the paternity report in my hand. "So, you did this test? Without telling me?" Amina didn't blink. I did what I had to do. Faraz finally spoke, voice low. "It was a mistake." I whipped toward him. "A mistake? You don't get a baby from a mistake." Faraz's eyes flashed. I didn't plan it either. Amina's lips curled. "Oh, don't play the victim. You planned plenty." She lifted her chin. "You planned how to smile at family dinners while texting me under the table. You planned how to knock on my door when he was away. You planned how to act like his protector while you poisoned his home." My heartbeat thundered in my ears. I felt like my chest couldn't contain the rage, the humiliation, the horror. "Why?" I rasped. "Why would you do this to me?" Faraz's mouth opened, then closed again. Amina answered instead, but this time her voice softened in a way that made my stomach twist. "Because you didn't listen when I begged you to stay," she said quietly. "Because when I told you I was lonely, you told me I was dramatic." My mother whispered. Amina glanced at her. "Auntie, I used to touch the walls of that house at night," she said. "I used to press my palm against the cold paint and pretend it was a heartbeat. That house was so silent, I could hear my own thoughts screaming." Her eyes returned to me. "And your brother, he knew exactly when you weren't there. He knew because he was always watching." Faraz's fists clenched. "That's not—" "It is," Amina snapped. "You don't get to rewrite it now." My throat tightened. "So you slept with him out of loneliness?" Amina stared at me for a long moment. Then she shook her head. "No, she said softly. I slept with him because I was weak, because I wanted to feel wanted, and because he made me believe I deserved attention. Faraz whispered, I did love you. Amina's eyes turned razor-sharp. No, you loved the power. You loved taking something that wasn't yours. That word again. Not yours. My mind flashed back to the title in my head, the sentence that had started this nightmare. This baby isn't yours. Not yours. I swallowed hard. So what now? I asked, voice breaking. What do you want? Money? Divorce? To destroy us? Amina leaned forward slightly, her gaze steady. I want the truth to finally live in the open, she said. I want you to stop building your life on lies you never bothered to check. Then she reached toward the bassinet and gently touched the baby's tiny hand with one finger. Her face changed, just for a second. A softness. A crack of real emotion. He didn't ask for any of this, she whispered. He didn't ask to be born into a secret. My eyes burned. Then why say it like that? Why announce it in front of everyone? Amina looked up at me, and the calm returned like a door closing. Because, she said, if I told you alone, you would have buried it. Your family would have buried it. You would have forgiven him, and you would have blamed me. My mother's lips trembled. We would never. Amina's eyes flicked to her, cutting her off without a word, and I knew she was right. I knew deep down my mother would have asked me to keep it quiet, to think of the family name, to not ruin Faraz's future. The family name. That invisible crown men wear while women bleed underneath it. Amina sat back, folding her hands again. I'm leaving, she said. My chest tightened. Leaving? With him? Amina's eyes dropped to the baby. Then she whispered the next line so softly it nearly didn't register. I'm not sure I'm allowed to. And the way she said it, like someone else held the permission, sent a cold fear crawling up my spine. Because suddenly, this wasn't just betrayal. This was about to become a war. And the baby, was the battlefield. The knock on the door sounded wrong, too polite for what was happening inside that room. 3 soft taps. Amina stiffened instantly, not startled, prepared, like she'd been waiting for it. Come in, she said before anyone else could speak. The door opened and 2 people stepped inside, a senior nurse I hadn't seen before, and a woman in a navy blazer with a hospital badge clipped to her lapel. Administration. Authority. Consequences. My mother whispered, What is this now? The woman offered a tight, professional smile. I'm sorry to interrupt. There's been a concern raised regarding the newborn. Amina didn't look at her. She was watching the baby. I raised it, she said calmly. My heart slammed. You what? The nurse cleared her throat. Ma'am, if there's a dispute regarding parentage or guardianship, protocol requires us to dispute. I snapped. There is no dispute. That's my wife, my brother. This is a family matter. The woman in the blazer met my eyes, unflinching. Sir, when a mother states the legal father may not be the biological father, and documentation exists, it becomes a medical and legal issue. She glanced at the paper still crumpled in my hand. That paper. It suddenly felt heavier than stone. Amina finally looked at me. This is why I said it now, she murmured, before you signed the birth certificate. My breath hitched. You planned this. Yes, she said, because planning is the only thing that saves women like me. Faraz took a step forward. This is getting out of hand. Amina turned to him slowly. No, she said. This is it finally being in hand. The nurse approached the bassinet. We'll need to temporarily move the baby to the nursery while this is reviewed. No, my mother cried. You can't just take him. Amina's voice cut through the panic. It's okay. I stared at her. How can you say that? She didn't answer me. She bent down instead, lifting the baby with a gentleness that made my chest ache. She held him close, pressing her lips to his forehead, breathing him in like she was memorizing oxygen. "This won't be long," she whispered to him. "I promise." Then she handed him to the nurse, and that was when I realized something horrifying. She was letting go too easily. The door closed behind them, and the room felt empty in a way I didn't think was possible, like something essential had been removed. My mother collapsed into the chair, shaking. "This is a nightmare," she murmured. "This can't be real." I turned on Amina. "You're destroying everything." She looked at me with tired eyes. "No. I'm stopping it from destroying him." I laughed, a sharp, broken sound. "You think this helps him? Growing up without a father? With this stain on his life?" Amina stood slowly. "He will grow up without lies," she said. "That already makes him luckier than most." Faraz muttered, "You're being dramatic." That was the wrong word. Amina's head snapped toward him, eyes blazing for the first time. "Dramatic?" she repeated. "Do you know what dramatic is? Hiding a pregnancy timeline. Sneaking into a woman's bedroom while your brother is working to feed you both. Standing by while she's praised as patient and well-behaved because she doesn't scream." Her voice trembled, but she didn't stop. "Dramatic is realizing you're carrying a child and not knowing which man's blood is inside him. Dramatic is praying for a miscarriage because you don't know how to survive the truth." The room went still. My mother covered her face. Faraz whispered, "You never told me you were afraid." Amina laughed bitterly. "You never asked." I felt dizzy. "Is that why?" I asked quietly. "Is that why you're scared to take him?" Amina's gaze dropped to the empty bassinet. "Yes." The word barely made a sound. She swallowed. "Because I don't know who will fight me for him." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" She looked up, meeting my eyes. "I mean, your family will want him if he's yours, and his family will want him if he's Faraz's, and no one will care what I want." My mother whispered, "We would never take a child from his mother." Amina turned to her gently. "Auntie, you already tried." The words hit like a slap. My mother froze. "What?" Amina took a slow breath. "The night I told you I was pregnant. You smiled, congratulated me, and then you asked whose bloodline he carried. You said it like a joke. But I heard it." My mother's mouth opened, closed. I remembered that night. I remembered laughing it off. I remembered not defending her. Shame crawled up my spine. Faraz broke the silence. "What are you saying, Amina?" "I'm saying this baby is not safe in a war of egos," she replied, "and I refuse to let him be used as proof, leverage, or punishment." I whispered, "So what do you want?" Amina looked at me for a long moment. "I want a clean break," she said. "I want custody decided by truth, not tradition. I want him to grow up knowing who he is without being owned by anyone." My voice cracked. "And me?" Amina's expression softened, not with love but with something like closure. "You will survive," she said. "Men always do." The door opened again. The nurse returned alone. "The baby is settled," she said. "Administration will require statements from all parties. There may also be further testing." Amina nodded. "I expected that." The nurse hesitated. "Ma'am, are you safe to return home today?" Amina's lips pressed together. "No," she said quietly. That single word made my heart lurch. The nurse glanced at the woman in the blazer, who nodded slightly. "We can arrange temporary accommodation," the nurse said gently, "and legal resources." My mother whispered, "Amina, come home. We'll talk. We'll fix this." Amina looked at her with something like pity. "Some things don't get fixed," she said. "They get faced." She turned to me one last time. "I didn't say it to hurt you," she said softly. "I said it to stop the lie from growing teeth." Then she picked up her bag. That same brown bag. The symbol of every year she carried this marriage quietly on her shoulder. As she walked toward the door, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't the climax. This was only the moment before the real damage. Because once truth enters the open, it doesn't just expose one secret. It pulls them all out. The lawyers arrived faster than I expected. Two men in dark suits, clipped voices, eyes already measuring the room like it was evidence. One introduced himself to Amina gently. The other barely looked at her before turning to my mother and me, like we were the real clients. That alone told me how this would go. "We'll need statements," the older lawyer said. "Separately." Faraz stiffened. "This is unnecessary." The lawyer finally looked at him. "Sir, nothing about this situation is unnecessary." Amina sat down, folding her hands again. That same posture. Calm. Controlled. Like she was anchoring herself to the chair so she wouldn't float away. I watched her and realized something ugly. She'd been preparing for this longer than any of us. The lawyer turned to me. "Sir, are you willing to acknowledge that you may not be the biological father?" The question burned. I swallowed. "I don't know." "That's an answer," he said, scribbling something down. My mother leaned forward. "We are a respectable family. We don't air these matters." Amina's lawyer looked at her calmly. "With respect, ma'am, your definition of respectability is part of the problem." Silence followed. Then Faraz stood up suddenly. "Enough," he said. "This is all being blown out of proportion." Amina didn't look at him. "Sit down." Faraz laughed, sharp and bitter. "You don't get to order me around anymore." Amina raised her eyes slowly. "You never listened when I asked politely," she said. "Now you'll listen, because everyone else is." The lawyer turned to Faraz. "Sir, are you aware that if biological paternity is confirmed, this becomes a criminal matter under family law due to breach of trust?" Faraz's face drained of color. "What?" My mother whispered. The word criminal hung in the air, heavy and poisonous. Faraz stammered, "This isn't, it is," the lawyer said evenly. "And there's more." He slid a file onto the table. My eyes caught a glimpse of something inside. Photos. Printed. My chest tightened. "What is that?" Amina finally spoke, voice low. "That's the rest of the truth." Faraz's hands shook. "You promised." Amina turned to him fully now. "I promised silence when I believed you had a conscience. I was wrong." She nodded at the file. "Open it." Faraz didn't. The lawyer did. Photographs slid out onto the table like dead leaves. I recognized the hallway in one of them. My house. My walls. My furniture. There was Faraz, his hand on Amina's wrist, his face close to hers in a way no brother-in-law should ever be. Another photo. A hotel room, time-stamped. Another. Text messages printed in neat columns. "I miss you. He doesn't need to know. We'll figure it out." My ears rang. My mother let out a sob. Ya Allah, I felt like I was shrinking, like the room was swallowing me piece by piece. Faraz dropped into a chair, head in his hands. "I never meant for it to go this far." Amina's voice was quiet. "That's the thing about betrayal. It always goes farther than planned." The lawyer turned to me again. "Sir, you need to decide how you want to proceed." I looked at Amina. "What do you want from me?" She met my eyes. For the first time there was no anger there, just exhaustion. "I want you to stop protecting people who hurt me," she said, "even if they share your blood." My throat tightened. My mother whispered, "He's your brother." I closed my eyes. That sentence had ruled my life. "He's your brother. Be patient. Don't embarrass the family. Handle it quietly." And suddenly I saw it clearly. How often those words had been used to excuse cruelty. I opened my eyes and looked at Faraz. He looked small now, not powerful, not charming, just afraid. "You destroyed my home," I said quietly. Faraz looked up. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "But you did," I replied. "And you kept going." He tried to speak, but no words came out. The lawyer cleared his throat. "Sir, if you choose to cooperate with your wife's claim, it will significantly impact custody and liability." I took a deep breath. This was the moment. Blood or conscience? Silence or truth? I looked at the empty bassinet again. The absence felt symbolic. That baby wasn't just a child. He was the lie made visible. "I'll cooperate," I said. My mother gasped. "What?" I didn't look at her. "I'll give my statement. I won't interfere." Faraz shot to his feet. "You can't do this to me." I finally raised my voice. "You already did it to yourself." The words tasted strange, liberating. Amina closed her eyes briefly, like she was steadying herself. "Thank you," she whispered. "Not for love, for honesty." The lawyer nodded. "We'll proceed accordingly." Faraz collapsed back into the chair. My mother looked at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. Maybe she didn't, because the man she raised would have protected the family name. This one was choosing something else. Later, when the room emptied and only Amina and I remained, the quiet returned. Different this time. Not oppressive. Honest. She stood by the window, looking out at the gray city below. "I never wanted it to end like this," she said softly. "I know," I replied. She turned to me. "Do you hate me?" The question cut deep. I thought of the nights she waited alone, the walls she touched, the silence she swallowed. "No," I said. "I hate the lie." She nodded. "That's enough," she said. As she walked toward the door, I noticed the dying carnations still on the table. I picked them up and threw them into the trash. Some symbols don't deserve to stay. And as the door closed behind her, I understood something painful but true. The loudest betrayals don't arrive screaming. They arrive calmly and leave you to rebuild the silence they destroy. The waiting was worse than the truth. Days passed, measured not by clocks but by phone vibrations, unanswered calls, and the constant feeling that something terrible was about to land. The hospital room was long behind us now, but it lived inside me. Every quiet moment echoing with Amina's calm voice, and that sentence that had split my life in two. "This baby isn't yours." The house felt different without her. Not empty, haunted. Every object suddenly had a memory attached to it, like it had been storing secrets all along. Her slippers by the door, the cup she always used, chipped on the rim. The guest room Faraz used to sleep in when he worked late. I couldn't step into that room. I sat at the dining table one night, staring at the wood grain, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered on instinct. "The test results are back," the lawyer said. "You should come in." My mouth went dry. "Both tests?" "Yes." There was no comfort in his tone, only finality. At the office, Amina sat across from me, her face pale but steady. She wore the same brown bag over her shoulder like armor. She didn't look at me when I entered, but I could feel her presence like a held breath. Faraz wasn't there. That absence spoke volumes. The lawyer slid 2 sealed envelopes across the table. "This one," he said, tapping the left envelope, "confirms you are not the biological father." I nodded slowly. I'd already grieved that truth in 100 quiet ways. He tapped the second envelope. "This confirms that Mr. Faraz is." Amina closed her eyes, just for a second. Then she opened them again. There was no victory in her expression, only exhaustion. The lawyer continued. "Given the circumstances, custody proceedings will consider the mother's safety, the biological father's conduct, and the environment in which the child would be raised." I asked quietly, "Where is Faraz?" The lawyer hesitated. "He's retained separate counsel. He's contesting full custody." Amina's fingers curled into her palm. "Of course he is," she murmured. Something hot rose in my chest. "On what grounds?" "He's claiming paternal rights," the lawyer said, and asserting that the mother acted deceptively. Amina let out a breathless laugh. "That's rich." I felt sick. "After everything?" The lawyer shrugged gently. People fight hardest when they're exposed. When we left the office, Amina walked ahead of me, stopping at the steps outside. The sun was setting, painting the city in gold and shadow. She stood there, staring at the sky like she was waiting for permission to breathe. "I didn't want him to fight me," she said quietly. I stepped beside her. "He doesn't want the child," I said. "He wants control." She nodded. "Exactly." She turned to me then, eyes searching. "Why are you still here?" The question wasn't accusatory. It was curious. "I don't know," I admitted. "Maybe because leaving feels like another lie." She studied my face. "You don't owe me anything." "I know." We stood there in silence, the city humming below us. Cars moved. People lived. The world hadn't stopped just because ours had cracked open. "Amina," I said, "if you need me to testify, to tell them everything I saw, everything I ignored." She cut me off gently. "I know." Her voice softened. "That matters more than you realize." The custody hearing came faster than expected. The room was sterile, stripped of emotion by design. Amina sat straight, hands folded. Faraz sat across from her, looking smaller than I remembered, his confidence drained like color from an old photograph. When he saw me, his jaw tightened. I didn't look away. His lawyer spoke first, painting a picture of confusion, of mutual fault, of forgiveness and family unity. Then Amina stood, and the room changed. "I'm not here to punish anyone," she said calmly. "I'm here to protect my child." She spoke about isolation, about loneliness that didn't look dramatic enough to be taken seriously, about how silence can become a cage if no one notices it tightening. She didn't cry. That was the most powerful part. Then it was my turn. I stood, heart pounding. "I didn't listen," I said. "I thought providing money was the same as providing presence. I thought silence meant peace." I glanced at Faraz. "And I trusted someone who didn't deserve it." His eyes dropped. "I'm not the child's father," I continued, "but I know who deserves to raise him, someone who chose truth over comfort." The judge listened without interruption. When Faraz spoke, his voice shook. He talked about regret, about mistakes, about wanting to do right. But regret without responsibility sounded hollow in that room. When it was over, the judge requested time. Waiting again. Always waiting. Hours later, we were called back in. The ruling came quietly. Primary custody granted to the mother. Supervised visitation for the biological father, pending counseling and review. Amina's shoulders sagged, not with relief but release. Faraz stared straight ahead, like he'd been hollowed out. Outside the courtroom, my mother approached me, eyes red. "You didn't have to humiliate us." I looked at her gently. "Truth isn't humiliation," I said. "It's exposure." She looked away. Amina stepped into the sunlight, and for the first time since this began, she smiled, not wide, not bright, but real. "I can breathe now," she said. I nodded. "So can I." She turned to me. "What will you do?" I thought of the house, the silence, the ghosts. "I'll rebuild," I said, "differently." She nodded. As she walked away, her brown bag swinging at her side, I realized the symbolism had shifted. That bag had once carried secrets. Now it carried freedom. The last time I saw the baby, he was sleeping. Peacefully. That detail stayed with me more than anything else, more than the shouting, the lawyers, the broken family name. While adults tore each other apart, he slept, as if he already understood something we didn't. That life goes on quietly, even after earthquakes. Amina invited me to see him a week after the ruling. Neutral ground, a small apartment near the hospital, temporary, but clean. White walls. Morning light. No ghosts. She opened the door, holding him against her shoulder. He was swaddled in a soft gray blanket, his tiny fist curled near his cheek. "You can come in," she said. I hesitated, then stepped inside. The apartment smelled like baby soap and fresh tea. It felt light, not heavy like our old house where every corner carried expectation. She sat down carefully and looked at me. "You don't have to hold him. I know," I said. "But I'd like to, if that's okay." She watched me for a moment, then nodded. When she placed him in my arms, something unexpected happened. There was no pain, no jealousy, no rage, just clarity. He was warm, real, innocent, not mine, and somehow that truth didn't destroy me anymore. "He's beautiful," I whispered. Amina smiled faintly. He is. We sat in silence for a while, the kind of silence that doesn't accuse you of anything. I keep thinking about that moment, I said finally. The way you said it. She glanced at me. Which moment? That sentence, I replied. The calm. Everyone expected screaming. Tears. Drama. She looked down at her son. I'd already screamed inside, she said softly. For years. That hit me harder than any accusation. I didn't say it calmly to hurt you, she continued. I said it calmly because if I had shown emotion, no one would have listened. They would have called me unstable, hormonal, difficult. I nodded slowly. I needed the truth to stand on its own, she said. Not hidden behind my tears. I thought of how often women are dismissed the moment their voices shake. You succeeded, I said quietly. She looked at me then, really looked at me. You changed too. I exhaled. I had to, or I'd lose myself completely. Faraz tried to contact me once after the ruling. One message. I never wanted to be the villain. I stared at the screen for a long time before deleting it. Villains rarely choose the role. They choose the actions. My mother didn't speak to me for weeks. When she finally did, her voice was tired. Older. You chose her over blood, she said. No, I replied gently. I chose truth over silence. She didn't answer. Maybe she never will, and that's something I've learned to accept. A month later, I moved out of the house. I didn't sell it immediately. I walked through it one last time instead. The guest room. The hallway. The walls Amina once touched at night. I placed my palm against the same wall she described and felt nothing. Just paint. Just emptiness. And that, somehow, felt like freedom. I donated most of the furniture, kept very little. Some things don't deserve to follow you into your next life. The carnations from the hospital had long since died. I never replaced them. On a quiet afternoon, I received a message from Amina. A thank you doesn't feel big enough, it read, but I want you to know you did the right thing. I stared at the words. For the first time since it all began, I believed them. Weeks turned into months. Life softened. I started therapy, learned uncomfortable things about myself, about how absence can feel normal if you grow up watching it, about how being a good man isn't about intention, it's about attention. One evening, while walking home, I passed a park. I saw Amina sitting on a bench, rocking the stroller gently with her foot while reading a book. She looked tired, but peaceful. She saw me and smiled. I didn't interrupt. I just nodded, and she nodded back. That was enough. Sometimes, endings don't come with speeches. They come with mutual understanding. I still think about that sentence. This baby isn't yours. At first it felt like a blade. Now I understand what it really was. A boundary. A truth. A line drawn calmly, clearly, and without apology. She didn't say it to destroy me, she said it to save herself, and in the process, she saved me too. Because the silence that followed didn't end my life. It ended the lie.